In the Netherlands, a quiet revolution is underway. From fields of peas and lupins to food labs and supermarket aisles, researchers and entrepreneurs are rethinking the way we get our protein. It's a transition filled with promise and paradox. How will the Netherlands shift from animal to plant protein? This short documentary is an output from a Spark grant from the Center of Unusual Collaboration and brings together 3 researchers from Dutch universities.
I am Gabriela Matias de Pinho. I work as an assistant professor at Utrecht University, and my research is on the intersection between food system sustainability and human health.
I'm Sanne Schoenmakers from Eindhoven University of Technology, and I work on artificial intelligence and mental health.
I'm Samaneh Nickayin, assistant professor in landscape architecture and spatial planning here at Wageningen University and Research.
This was an exploratory project where we investigated the role of plant-based meat replacers on environmental sustainability and human health. In this documentary, we interview some experts from the field with their views on this topic, and we finalize with some potential research gaps.
At Wageningen University, food technologist Jan van der Goot has spent more than a decade developing new ways of making plant-based meats. Back in 2008, he teamed up with visionary entrepreneurs on how to develop fibrous meat-like structures out of plants. Early funding was scarce, and he had to be creative to fund PhD projects. Yet, those efforts paid off. Those early experiments led to a breakthrough, shear cell technology, which allows plant proteins to form steak-like textures. Today, that innovation has spun off into real products, even used in hospital kitchens. A remarkable example how research translates into real-world impact. But progress comes with trade-offs.
If I would need a high protein level, in plants, protein levels are a little bit lower. So then I have to do something. So I have to process. And then you see sometimes dilemmas that you get complaints by highly processed on one hand. But on the other hand, if you don't do it, you don't reach the protein levels.
It's a trade-off between health, nutrition, and sustainability.
We have to change our diet to make it more sustainable.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I don't know whether we have the luxury to say, this is not good and this is not good. I think we need all the solutions.
There's an ongoing debate on potential health risks of plant-based meat substitutes, often containing lots of salt, sugar, saturated fats, and less fiber.
I find it a bit concerning for human health because it is more a trend toward highly processed products. Whereas from an environmental standpoint, they can be very beneficial.
If we consider the primary production, then for a lot of plant-based meat alternatives, it's soy. And this is linked to causes of deforestation. And more processing also means more energy, for instance, or more packaging or transport. But compared to animal-based foods such as meat, beef or poultry, the impact is relatively low.
While most researchers agree that plant-based meat replacers are better for the environment, their impact on health is less clear. I think you should compare the plant-based burger with a burger from the supermarket that is also filled with salt, additives, and water. And I think they are comparable products in the terms of the level of processedness or amount of salt. I don't doubt too much about the health issues though. I think the whole supermarket-level meat sector should be replaced by plant meat. And if you want real meat, you should go to a butcher and buy something proper.
While in general, studies may suggest that those who consume more plant-based foods are more healthy and have less diseases, for instance, that are related to diets. This may be due to the fact that they consume higher amounts of the traditional meat replacers, such as legumes or nuts, and not specifically the high processed plant-based meat alternatives.
Most experts agree. Plant-based meat replacers are a good option for the environment and they can be a part of a healthy diet, although more research is needed. Many Dutch plant protein companies started with big ideals, changing the world one burger at a time. I have the impression that many of them started from a more idealistic point of view, but then are finding out that in reality it's difficult. And then a bigger buyer comes along and buys the brand to help it to get along. But this also may dilute their ideals about sustainable food systems. I think that last year, one of the big plant-based alternatives producers was even bought up by one of the major global meat producer chains. That's the other side. The meat producers also see that there is a shift in a protein consumption ongoing globally. And they see that they have broadened up their portfolio, so they are more interested in buying these companies. After years of hype, the market seems to cool down. Vegan sections in supermarkets have shrunk, and investors' enthusiasm has slowed.
I see changes in supermarkets. It used to be big shelves, and I think they are shrinking now. And then I just see in general headwinds, and the New England is maybe an exception that can still survive. But you also can read, of course, that vegan restaurants go back to having meat on the menu because consumers do not come anymore. It is just a difficult time. For everything, it's a difficult time, including meat. Maybe there was over-optimism also in 2015. I think stocks of Beyond Meat were skyrocketing and now completely down. It's much more difficult, I think, to keep an investor compared to 10 years ago.
The challenge, experts say, is connecting research, industry and society. Funded research and innovation programs must balance science, consumer demands and industry incentives, while finding creative ways to collaborate. That connection between research, innovation and society isn't found only in laboratories or boardrooms. The three researchers from the Dutch universities envision a plant-based future and meet together at restaurant De Nieuwe Winkel in Nijmegen, known for its 100% plant-based cuisine.
It looks like that there is a close collaboration between scientists and the chef. So because part of it is adjusting the flavor and part of it is the whole process of making. How does it work in here? Like you said, you have 2 nights a week scientists coming here, and
They work here full time, and the main part of their job is like to develop new things, of course, but also to work on the new menu. And they do this in close collaboration with our chef Emil. So he pitches ideas, and then they work on it, and they sit together quite a lot to talk about it, and then go in different directions. Before, like when the restaurant was younger, it was actually, there was no testing. So the chefs were just like trying out all the recipes and making the recipes together with the chef. And this slowly evolved. Now we have 2 and it's really turning into a lab. So the kitchen is a little bit less involved because they have a lot of time to spend on it, and that really works. But this has changed over time.
And you mentioned that basically you don't try, to some extent, the form of the food you can recall like proteins, but this is not your intention. Your intention is merely communicating that it's possible to have a tasty vegetable as well.
Yeah,
Right.
Yeah.
My curiosity is that how far have you been successful in transferring this message to your clients?
I think we've been quite successful because what I hear a lot from guests is that even if, like, sometimes you get these guests who are like, oh yeah, I never usually go to vegetarian restaurants. I'm not so used to this type of cooking, but I really didn't miss it, is what they say. Like I didn't miss meat or fish. So it's a lot about flavor, like depth of flavor and umami flavors that you need to create, and also textures.
Do you also think about that the food needs to fill a stomach, like that it should have associations?
I would say that's something really important if you're like eating plant-based diet at home, definitely, because then you need to get all your nutrition. For us, that kind of happens automatically because we really like to work with, well, for sure soy, because there are really nice Dutch soybeans that we can get, so that's basically always in some form or another in our menu, and quite a lot of nuts and grains.
And then let me explain the most obscure dish of the evening. So I'm going to try my best to sell this. I brought a SCOBY. You probably are familiar with the making of kombucha. Maybe that's symbiotic culture of bacteria and yeast. Together they form this biofilm, and you're going to eat the scope. So you cannot eat it like this. It's pure cellulose. But if you process in the correct way, you get a texture that we cannot achieve any other way. It's a texture more in line with a squid or scallop.
Do you share this somehow or somewhere?
Yeah, we start with it right now. So we just started to have our own lab. So in our private dining room in the back, there's our fermentation lab, and we're working from there over years now. But right now we started that we make kind of a brand out of it to work with universities and students and so on. So yeah, right now we start to share our knowledge because we want to make more than only serving our wonderful guests. It's more like that we really can change things.
Moments like these show that innovation isn't only technical, it's cultural. It begins when people meet, eat, and imagine new possibilities together. Food is never just about nutrition. It's part of who we are. In many parts of the world and many parts of society, eating meat has become the standard of the past 50 years. If you don't eat meat, you're weird. Not eating meat, now and then, is accepted, but on a party there should be a lamb, a pig, or at least a steak. Eating meat nowadays is still related to parties, coming together and socializing. I think meat alternatives can partly replace that, but not completely.
My takeaway on this project is that most interviewed researchers agree on the environmental benefits of plant-based meat replacers, but there are mixed conclusions about their health benefits, mostly in relation to the protein quality, salt content, and also sugars. When asked about ultra-processed food content and the fact that these products are highly processed, most researchers acknowledge that indeed they are highly processed, but they didn't consider that as a problem for human health. My take is that there's not enough research on the health effects of plant-based meat replacers, and especially not on the ultra-processed foods contribution that these products have on Dutch diets.
What surprised me the most is that there is a clear link in the scientific literature between mental health problems and the distribution of proteins, like how much tryptophan or tyrosine is in your diet. However, many experts working in or with the food chain do not seem to be aware of this literature. There does not seem to be a lot of attention for the distribution of essential proteins in our nutrition. Yet this may be the cause of the rise in mental health problems.
My takeaway is that while long-term environmental benefits of plant-based protein transition are promising, many effects are hard to measure in short term. And we still need to understand the global impacts, where the ingredients come from and which lands or landscape are affected by this growing demand.
But change is coming. Initiatives like Lekker Lupine and the Bean Deal bring farmers, processors and consumers together, creating local change for Dutch-grown protein crops. These are small steps toward a more circular, self-sufficient food system. Most experts envision a balanced future, one where plant proteins play a far greater role. Livestock will still have a place, but in a more ecological role, like raising and upcycling. The protein transition isn't just about what we eat, but how we collaborate, innovate and adapt. Its success will depend on science, industry and society coming together.